Dissent. Again, it's a fork in the road moment. Sometimes it's hard to feel that in a cable news cycle, but when I read her dissent, I felt it. And I want to ask you if this provides an alternate history for Nixon. I mean, why would Nixon have had to leave office? It sounds like he could have gotten away with all that and quoting Sotomayor and more.
Exactly right. He was pardoned because he attempted to interfere with an FBI investigation of the Watergate break-in. And the acknowledgement implicit in the pardon and his acceptance of the pardon is that he violated the law and could be prosecuted. Under the court's test articulated today, the executive's, the president's supervision of the Justice Department, including the FBI, is core protected, the prerogative of the president. That would be immune. That's why Justice Sotomayor, understandably, is so exercised about this and talks about a fork in the road. Right? The court identified this three categories: core conduct, exclusive province of the president, things like the conduct of foreign affairs or the pardon authority. And the other extreme is purely personal things, well beyond his status as president, a very small category. The real ball game here, Nicole, is in the middle. It's stuff that is arguably official, and there's a presumption that that will be immune. And the court doesn't really give lower courts much help in what it takes to rebut that presumption. They essentially says it can be rebutted if there's the prosecution shows no danger or intrusion of the authority and functions of the executive branch. I don't even know what that means. So Judge Chutkan and other judges have to sort out if something is potentially official, does it interfere? Would prosecution of it interfere somehow with the functioning of the executive branch? That's why there's not a lot of confidence, and Justice Sotomayor is correct, that that's not going to lead to a lot of bad behavior that is outside the realm of criminal prosecution.
Congresswoman, you are by name and by participation in the January 6th Select Committee, which the convicted felon, ex-president, Republican candidate, currently leading in the polls, calls the Unselect Committee. He's targeted the Committee for Prosecution. Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. I'm nervous for our country. As you know, I'm sure the Constitution provides that members of the Congress cannot be held to answer for their legislative acts anywhere else. It's the only actual immunity provided for in the Constitution. Trump today on his Truth Social said that the January 6th committee members should be arrested. Then he suggested that there should be military tribunals, specifically with a picture of Liz Cheney. And if you take a look at what the court's decision is today, that he would violate the law and the Constitution appears to be okay with them. They have created we're 3 days short of the 248th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And they have trashed that today with creating an imperial presidency that our forefathers overturned. They didn't want a king. I don't want one either. And I think, voters have an opportunity to prevent this guy from becoming the authoritarian leader that he has told us he wants to be. But we also have a problem with this court that we've got to grapple with. How do we address this? The next president probably is going to appoint 3 justices. And so if Mr. Trump is not elected, there'll be some opportunity to get back to the center, away from this extremism in the court. They have shown a propensity, this court, to just completely overturn willy-nilly long-standing precedents. The next court may need to do that to get us back firmly into the center where we were before these extremists were appointed to our highest court.
This court has taken away a constitutional right for the first time in our country's history. This court, in their opinions agreeing with that removal of a right, made clear that marriage equality is in its sights of the super conservative supermajority. This court will probably look at IVF. Every family that exists because of the miracle of IVF is in jeopardy. This court has said today that an American president is a king an absolute FU to the founders, as the Congresswoman says, 3 days before the nation's birthday, making a mockery of my favorite ever musical, Hamilton. This court has its lowest approval rating in history. This court decided, as Dahlia Lithwick said, to let all this go down without any audio recording of it. Why?
The other thing I will add is I'm old enough to remember that when the Supreme Court ruled that Nixon had to turn over the tapes, that you thought, okay, this is the rule of law, and that this truly is a president is subject to the law. They're a citizen sort of first. It is by no means clear that Nixon decision would come out the same way. In fact, it's completely antithetical to the reasoning here, which is the court saying, oh, no, we don't even want to allow any sort of criminal look or even
Would the
use
Mueller
of
investigation
evidence.
exist? Does the special counsel law exist?
Well, to the extent that the president, to the extent that he's doing something as a candidate before his presidency, yes, you can still look at that. But any sort of conduct while he's president, sort of like the firing of Jim Comey in saying that the purpose was to avoid a prosecution, that's off the table. They're going to say, no, he has absolute immunity with respect to who he chooses and who he doesn't, even if it's done for an illegal purpose. They're like, no, that is off the table. And I think Nixon would be decided differently because they'd say, you know what, tapes that have to do with conversations between the president and people who are advising him, off the table. So this is really, it's hard to understate the import of this decision in terms of our democracy.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.